I playing that? Well, my speech, fellow Toastmasters, my speech is actually called Really Crossing Canada. So I'm not really cross at all. You see, when I left school and I had no money, I decided to sign on as a merchant seaman and go across to America. So I did. I became a merchant seaman. I crossed on an iron ore boat. And the first night, I was hitchhiking. And at 2 o'clock in the morning in Nova Scotia, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, no cars, nothing, empty road, nothing at all. And then suddenly this car came whooing by. Chap stopped. He said, "Hi, fella." And I said, "Hello." He said, "I'm celebrating tonight." I said, "You're celebrating tonight?" He said, "Yeah, I finally got the girl." So I said, well done, thinking, well, at least I wasn't going to be raped. Well, that was He said, this was 3 o'clock in the morning, he said, "Are you staying the night anywhere?" I said, "Does it look as if I'm staying the night anywhere?" He said, "Well, look, come home with me." And I thought, He stopped the car at the end of his drive. He said, "Look, fella," he said, "I can give you a bed tonight," but he said, "If you don't mind, we have to crawl up the drive." So we crawled up the drive 150 yards. I said, "Why are we crawling?" He said, "It's my grandpappy. He sits at an open window with a gun, and if he sees anything moving, he shoots it." So I crept even more quietly. Oh dear. Anyway, it was fine. The next day I hitchhiked to a place called Fredericton, where, because I had no money, I landed with, I think, $30, which even then wasn't a lot. I knocked on the door of the local jail, and I said, "Can I spend the night in your jail?" And they said, "Sure, fella, you can spend the night in our jail." And I said, "Well, can you be sure to let me out?" I mean, like tomorrow morning, because I've got these nice people who are going to give me a lift. So they said, fine. They locked me up in this cell. And I put my wallet containing very little money under my head on this place. Next morning, they put a couple of drug addicts in the cell with me. And I looked at my watch, and it was 8:30. They promised to let me out at 7. I said, "Hey, let me out, let me out." And the jailer came out with a big bunch of keys, and he said, "We ain't letting anybody out of this jail until 9 o'clock. I said, "But there are people waiting. They're going to give me a lift on to Montreal." He said, "Well, that's tough, fella." Well, what was wonderful, I don't know if you've seen these American films, with bars and things. Well, there were lots of other prisoners in this jail, and they started banging their mugs against the bars. Some of them had matches, so they set fire to their bedding. They started to break up their chairs. A few china loos were broken. And finally, the jailer came out with a bunch of keys. He said, "Fella," he said, "get out of Fredericton, because whatever you do, you ain't ever being put back in this jail." So I got out, and these divine people were waiting for me. They'd been driving round and round Fredericton, and they gave me a lift. It was absolutely splendid. Well, thereafter, I found myself in Banff Springs, and I became a golf caddy. And some of you may know that I actually fell in love. I fell in love with this gorgeous girl, and we were both golf caddies, carrying the bags for our rich American oil men. And my chap who was employing me got a little bit further down the golf course, 100, 200 yards further, and suddenly I heard him call back, "George, leave that damn girl alone and come and wash my bowl." That was fun. Well, not washing his balls, but and then on my way back, I knocked at another door of a jail. This was Regina, Saskatchewan, and they put me in a cell. And I woke up the next morning and there was a 6'5" murderer who just murdered his wife, sharing the same bed with me. I then hitchhiked out of Regina, travelled in a hearse, and the guy said, oh, there's a stiff in the back, so that was fine. And then I got picked up. Then I got picked up by somebody who was a lorry driver, and I became a truck driver's assistant. We delivered furniture all over, and he was one of these guys who drives for 24 hours at a time. And he called me Tex for reasons I'm not quite sure. And he said, play your mouth organ again. Play the Yellow Rose of Texas. So I would go. And I was dying of sleep. And he was driving this truck like this. George, play the Yellow Rose of Texas. Play it again, George. Oh boy. And I did. I got so sick of the Yellow Rose of Texas. But that kept him awake, and we finally got to Montreal, where I became a bricklayer. And if Mawson's Brewery falls down, even now, it's because of me as the world's worst bricklayer. And then finally, still playing the Yellow Rose of Texas, I managed, wearing jeans, as an ex-schoolboy, I managed to hitch a lift with the Royal Canadian Air Force, a free flight back to England, and I'm still playing